Hey guys, Trap Garage. Today is a mystery engine. Will it run? As the internet loves. I bought this old 59 AB hot rodded flathead years ago. My buddy Ben and I were in Delaware buying some stuff from an old hot rodder, and he had all these flatheads lined up and he wanted to get rid of some engines. I picked this one out of the litter, and I picked this one because it had a bunch of telltale signs that it might be something cool. It is relieved. It has a Weber cam, which may be hard to see in the front. It has adjustable tappets. There was a bunch of stuff. You can see there was an external like oil filter that was on at some point. We noticed that when we measured the bore, it is 3 5/16, which is bored out, which is actually like the ideal bore for a street engine. So we're gonna see if we can get this thing to run. So we gooped up an oil pan and just slapped it on there.
We found out it was a Merc crank.
Oh yeah, duh. We pulled the oil pan to see what crank it has. It has a 4-inch Mercury crank, so it is has a small stroke to it.
Steve's removing the mud daubers from
Oh yeah, lots of mud.
Sitting for a while. Luckily, it was sitting mostly indoors, and yeah. So we're gonna try and see what this engine does. I don't know what Weber cam it is. We have no idea about anything. We have to just see if it'll run. This is a process we go through off camera quite often. We figured we'd show it in this one, and it might turn out that we have a cool running engine here by the end of the video, or we might just say thumbs down and we have another broken flathead, which we've shown.
We might just end up with a Weber cam and a crank.
Yeah, you might watch us go through the process to pull a Weber cam and adjustable tappets and a Mercury crank. So we're gonna get this on a run stand, get the engine turning over and oil in it, etc., etc. And yeah, we'll see if we can put this together with parts we got laying around, and fingers crossed we can maybe hear this thing run, which would be really, really cool.
Matt gets to play the fun game of what heads and intake are we going to stick on?
Yeah, we're going to stick on this thing. Yeah, so yeah, we saw somebody put a little timing marker, and they actually filed timing marks into this. So this thing's, you know, obviously somebody had this on something. It was more than just like slap the cam in. I mean, if they were messing with the timing, it might have had a magneto or something in it that they were, you know, actually trying to set the timing more than just bolting a stock distributor on. So, all good signs. We'll just see if it's broken or junk or not.
After all this work.
Yes, after all. Okay. Just has to get knocked in and you can clean it over too.
Yeah. I'm stepping up on the iPhone 7.
Jesus. You're going to have to relearn how to use the phone. It's totally different.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be really confusing. Yeah. Sweet. All is right. We have an engine on the stand.
All right, so I've been digging into this engine. It actually turns out it's stuck. I couldn't remember that. So I've been digging into it, trying to free it up, and we figured out that a bunch of the valves, it's kind of after you do this for a while, you start noticing stuff. So a couple of these valves, these ones down here, like these 3 or 4 on this side especially, they were like very dry and had rust on them. You could kind of probably see, even though I have a bunch of penetrating oil, there was like surface rust, and that kind of was like telling me that those ones might be stuck. I think out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this side, this one right here was the only one that freed up. So what I've been doing is just working them carefully and prying them up and spraying stuff. You can see this one's got like cobwebs under the valve. It's hard to see there, but there's like cobwebs under the valve. So a lot of them, they're quite rusty. I had to wreck the guide on one because it was so stuck you could not get anything out. So I actually had to break the guide, knock the guide out. I was able to save the valve, so that was good. This one I had to disassemble, and eventually I was able to work it out and save the guide. It just has to go back together. So I'm going around the whole engine, taking them apart slowly, and then eventually we're hoping this pipe wrench will be able to turn the engine over. But every valve I'm turning it, trying to turn it a little more once they're freed up to see if we can save ourselves some time. But so far just about everyone's been stuck to some extent, and we're just fighting to get them freed up. So hopefully we can get this freed up. The only nice thing is that this has adjustable tappets with the holes drilled. You can see down there in the valley. So I'm able to easily adjust the tappets down to give me some clearance to get a pry bar in there and actually start working the valves out. And I've been working them out and then tap them with the plastic hammer down and back and forth. So it's been working out okay. All right, so I got all the valves freed up, or at least loosened their bores, so that we should be able to turn this thing over. I tried messing with it last night after I got the last valve out, and it was still stuck. I was getting a little bit of rock out of the crank pulley, out of the crank, but not much. So I doubt it changed overnight. Yeah, like there, I'm getting a little like wiggle out of the crank, which is more than we were getting before, but it's still not, oops, still not what we want. So, yeah, so I'm getting a little bit of movement, so something's starting to move a little bit. I wonder, the next thing I'm wondering about is taking the timing cover off and pulling the timing gear off and see if maybe the cam is a little stuck in the bearings in the engine. That's one thing that could happen. If it still seems kind of stuck with that, then I don't know. But I think I'm going to try and pull the cover off, pull the cam gear off, and then we can get the bottom end separated from the cam. And if then stuff starts to turn, then we kind of know where the problem is. But the bores all don't look too bad. They're not too rusty, so I would think that they should at least start wiggling. They might, until we get it turned over, they might be a little bit of a problem, but they shouldn't be like stuck because I don't see any major like rust ridges in them, but you never know. So I'm gonna pull the crank pulley and pull this timing cover, and then we can go from there. Got this all broken apart. All right, so got a bar on some extra bolts here. The cam is a little stuck too. Oop, there it goes. So I think a combination of everything is kind of stuck and a little rusty and whatever in this engine. But we know that the cam isn't seized, so that's good. But it's still not turning over in the bottom end, so there must be some rust at the rings that are causing some issues. So we may need to bang them around or possibly take the crank out and knock the pistons out. But we were hoping not to get that deep in this engine before we went any further. But it's telling us what it needs to have happen.
All right, so in the last couple shots, we pulled this off of the run stand because we can't get it freed up. So put it on the run stand, or pulled it off, put it on the table, and last night we figured out why this doesn't want to turn over. There's some rust in the bottom of the bore. So Steve pulled the majority of the nuts off of the rod caps. So we're going to try and knock some of these pistons out to see if we can get it turned over. And then once we get all the pistons out, hopefully try and do a little quick hone, put it back together and get it to run. So let's see if we can knock these pistons out. That'll be our first major hurdle for the day.
Yep.
Alright, so Steve got all the pistons out, but number 6, and we have to take the crank out to get to it. But we found this lovely gem. What piston was that?
Number 4.
Number 4. That ain't gonna work. She's a little bent. So we're gonna get 6 out and at least hone the block. I think we have extra pistons at the warehouse to make it work. But that's a no bueno right there. Good lord.
You know what? This is going to turn crazy now.
That's pretty serious bendage.
It's 21As. I should have some kicking around, or we have some.
Yeah.
Let's put another rod on it. That's a new one. I wouldn't have guessed that with this engine.
Nope. I didn't see that one coming either.
What'd you drop?
That was that.
Oh, that was the nut we were missing.
That was the nut we were missing.
Steve dropped one in the engine.
Yesterday you did.
Found it.
We literally had that discussion earlier.
Yep. Yeah, Mike was reminding me, make sure you find that before it goes back together.
Yeah, this cam, it's actually not that bad.
Dude, that's like,
That's wall hanger
that's
quality
really
there.
bad.
Yeah.
All right, so Steve's been soaking this for a little while from the bottom with some Marvel's Mystery Oil, and this one is definitely stuck. So I decided to tap around. I was tapping from the bottom with a piece of wood and a big hammer, just tapping around trying to get it loosened up, and I think it moved a little bit. And then I just took one of these piston hammers, mallets, and I think I just saw it move in a couple of hits. It might have moved up. It looks like you can see a little bit of rustering there, where I might have just moved it up. So I'm gonna try and hammer it up a little bit more, and then I might be able to clean that grime off, and then we can knock this last piston out, which would be fantastic. Oh yeah, there it went. Hooray! So we were hunting around in the warehouse. Mike was hunting around. My memory was correct.
I wasn't even looking for these.
But I knew I had somewhere in one of our estates gotten a set of 3 5/16 piston rings set. And I was like, that's a common size. We probably use that on a hot rod engine. And
Yep.
Mike found it. So Steve is, what are you doing, Steve?
Fitting the one compression ring that broke when we were taking the taking the pistons out of the engine.
Okay. Do you have that one in there?
Yeah, it's down in the bore here.
And what, you've been filing, when they come, these old time rings.
Well, all rings, you gotta set the end gap to make sure that you get the right seal. And then, yeah, you're supposed to set it 3 different places in the bore and check it 3 different places and get it as good as you can.
Especially on this engine.
Yeah, because this one's going to be a real ripper.
Or a dud.
Yeah.
Or that, maybe.
Yeah, so it's probably quite a bit different depending on where you set it in the bore on this one.
There is a bit of a taper, yeah. Yeah. The end gap does change a little bit from top to bottom.
As long as it's tighter at the top so it doesn't smoke, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's always looser at the top. That's where all the wear is.
Yeah.
Dang it. Dang it.
But well, but now, luckily now we have a ring, we can at least put that piston back there. Did you get all the rings freed up on all the other?
Most of them. I got one top compression ring that it just will not budge so far, so that one might be getting a new ring too.
Okay, well we have.
Luckily we have a set now.
We have a set of them.
And you can hear it, the ultrasonic cleaner is running in the background with the pistons in a spa.
Yeah.
Spa day for them.
Making more piston soup.
And we had what, a couple of valves that I got the valve and guide out, but the guide is still stuck to the valve, so we got them freed up. We stole a guide from another engine we had taken apart, and Steve and I put that assembly back together, and that's working well. I think you got pretty much all the other ones turned into cam.
Yep, everything's, all the valve train's freed up now, other than the ones we have soaking. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Does this have adjustable tablets in it?
Yeah. Yeah, I had adjusted some of them down. Once I realized that this thing was like way stuck, I just started adjusting the tappets down just to see if the cam would budge.
Yeah.
And the couple that were really stuck, I just adjusted them down far enough that you could see that there was more. Well, yeah, the cam moved, but then we could tell there was more. You know, I couldn't budge the bottom end. So
right. Yep.
That is where we fast forwarded to here, where we're
right. We're benchtop rebuild.
Yes, we're doing a benchtop Thursday night before the Friday night race.
SEMA is in 2 days. Steve.
No, man, circle track.
Oh boy.
Gotta get that engine back together.
We might be screwed.
We got to get this thing ready so we can go to Saturday night. The Saturday night lights.
Yeah.
And, get a trophy. Get a little trophy.
Nice.
All right, so Steve's been hard at work putting this thing back together, but it's been fighting you.
Every step of the way.
So what was the first thing that happened? The valves were...
Everything was stuck, yeah. And we got the pistons out of it, then getting the valve train out of it was a job. Then there was bent connecting rod, there was a couple of bent valves.
So you lapped all the valves, they're in.
Yep.
All the lashes set, and then you went to put the crank back in it.
Yeah, and main studs ain't supposed to be in 2 pieces.
That's not a new thing? Two
No.
studs?
Unfortunately, as soon as I was tightening it down to 85 pounds, it just snapped. That's a terrible noise to hear.
Yes, yeah. It's very, when it gets loose all of a sudden, that's a very disheartening feeling. So we got a new, where is that mag drill? We got a new mag drill, or a magnetic based drill from Evolution Tools. And we've been waiting for a reason to use it, because we haven't had one. Yeah, until Steve was like, hey, I found a good use for this thing. I'll put a photo right here. He actually used it and mounted it to the block and was able to drill out the broken stud because it was what, like a 1/4 inch into the block?
Yeah, it was about a 1/4 inch inside the hole, so.
Drilled it, used an easy out, and voila.
Got really lucky. Yeah.
So this thing actually came in clutch. It was Steve was going to film, and then I forgot to put a memory card in the camera, and that's why we don't have any footage. But super helpful. Hopefully we'll have some more uses for it as we go. But Steve's been plugging away, putting more pistons in it. So Matt and I leave for Charlotte tomorrow. So hopefully while we're gone, Steve has continual good luck.
Yeah.
Steve will be pissed if anything else happens. He's going to work on putting this back together. So hopefully when we get back, we can toss it on the run stand and maybe make some noise. Fingers?
Hopefully, yeah,
Fingers?
that's the idea. Yeah, hopefully this week it'll be making, be ready to make noise by the end of the week.
Woo. All right, I'll let you get back to work.
All right, so engine's on the stand. Steve's been tinkered away on it. This engine has been, he's dubbed it the Frankenstein engine, but it's also it's a devilish engine because it's been fighting every step of the way, both the engine and everything else. So we ended up having to run double up on the copper washers or the crush washers on the spark plugs because it has a pretty high lift cam on it, and it was just barely touching the electrode, and we didn't want obviously that to happen. So we ran those on there. Everything clears now. Got that sorted. Steve worked on the Patronics. We did a Patronics kit in the stock distributor to make things a little simple, and Steve had some problems just for anybody that's doing this. So
Yeah, anybody that's doing a Patronics swap here had to modify the base plate a little bit. It didn't quite clear some of the flats inside the distributor, and trying to get the edge, had chamfer the edges to get the snap ring to fit in there too. It's just some modifications. It wasn't too bad. You just have to make sure that everything fits again.
well, you said it wasn't too bad after you swore
Right,
a bunch
yeah,
doing it. Now that you did it once, you're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah,
It sucked. It was.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about doing that in instructions.
No, it caused me a lot of headaches. Yeah, it did.
We've both done a ton of Patronics kits, and most of them you just put the little, we won't pull it out, but the little box, the pickup, and you'll just thread it right onto the plate that's in the distributor. But for whatever reason on this 59AB style Flathead one, it comes with its own plate, which locates over the center shaft, but he had to sand on that, and it wasn't sitting quite right, and it was binding. So we had a bunch of problems. The other problem was we had brand new, Matt was like, hey, let's buy all brand new parts for this thing, and I'll do it right. We broke a rotor because something is cast just a little wrong in this distributor cap, and it's just a little too high, and it's actually hitting and breaking the rotor. So we dug around in the bin and found a good used one with the new rotor that's been repaired with JB Weld, and we have it all back together, and this one fit. And it must have only been literally like a tiny bit, but it was just obviously an issue. And Steve didn't realize he would think the correct parts. He just threw them on and went to crank the engine to check for spark, and the rotor blew into pieces. So now we are ready to check for spark here, and I guess we'll set this guy there. And go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get some spark out of this thing. Cool.
Ooh, got that.
Yeah, that's not good. But we have spark, and we're going to check a few more things, and I think we are ready to try and hopefully, fingers crossed, see if this thing will make some sort of noise. We threw a stock manifold. This is like our run stand manifold with a known good Holley carburetor that we've been putting on and trying to take out some of the question marks when we're doing these Flathead engines on the run stand. It's usually a crappy carburetor or points or whatever, so we're going to pull this distributor and do up another one for this engine whenever it goes in something. But now we'll have this Patronics distributor that's ready to go. We'll keep it on the shelf, bolt it on with the carburetor and a good fuel pump, and then it'll make starting these old Flatheads a lot easier because you're not trying to diagnose 50 years of sitting of why it's not running. So so we're gonna get the fuel in this thing and see if we can make it pop off. Fingers crossed. All right, so we rigged up a little electric fuel pump to also make our lives easier in a little tank we have there, and now we're able to fill that up, fill the carburetor up. And we're not cranking the battery forever trying to use the mechanical pump. We still have a mechanical pump hooked up, so we can actually fire the thing prime it with the electric pump, and then once it's running, we can shut it off. So, what do you think, Steve?
There's only one way to find out what happens.
Anxiety levels at an all new high.
Oh yeah, I'm having trouble concentrating right at the moment.
Is this oh, you got that bolted down. Good.
Yeah.
Man, you really upgraded this thing.
I'm trying. Alrighty.
Yeah, let's see. Do you want me to do we want to choke? Oh, you got a choke.
I got a little choke.
Go ahead.
No, you can work the choke. If it starts, you can come off it. Yep. Okay, here we go.
I mean, it's dry. It's going to take a bit to get.
Yeah. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Still hooked up.
Yeah, just need to get all that fuel down
Yep.
there. Go ahead.
Come on, baby.
Tried.
Yeah.
Needed full choke. Makes sense because it's got that big cam and all that shit in it.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't. As soon as I choked it all the way. There's all your oil.
Yeah.
Your cylinders.
Yep. There was still a little in there.
Okay. So.
There isn't a vacuum port open there, is it?
Yes.
That sure does look like it
Yeah,
is,
that's
doesn't
for
it?
your advance.
Okay.
Yeah, that would. That also would not help.
No.
It is a little chilly today, I guess. And if
A little bit, yeah.
If it's cold-blooded, go ahead.
Oil pressure 30 pounds.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Ran out of fuel again.
I had the fuel. I forgot to turn the fuel pump on.
Oh!
I turned it off and I forgot to turn it back on.
So obviously this pump is not working.
Apparently not. I'm gonna have to check that.
Might have the wrong push rod.
Yeah, push rod. Yep. Okay. Let's try that again. See if that works.
That's why it was getting harder to start too.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, why is this thing getting so hard to start? All right, go ahead.
Running on 8 cylinders.
Yeah, that's so weird how it was. Go ahead again.
Let me open up the regulator.
Well, it's weird that it started idling faster.
Yeah.
Probably think it might still be running out a little bit.
Might be. Shut itself off just as I was reaching for the key.
There we go. All right, so we got this thing running, as you guys heard, and I think we're gonna call this video a wrap for now. I think we had nearly 6 months or 4 months.
I don't like it.
We had a long time. All I remember is it was winter time and I had the wood stove going when I was trying to break all the valves free in the engine block. So that had to be, I think, earlier midwinter. So it's been at least 3 or 4 months. This thing we've been on and off again, messing with it. I had a bit of work in the beginning, but Steve had the majority of the work after that. And it's kind of nice to hear it run again. Pretty much have deemed it a good engine. Now it's probably not an engine that is something that I would drive cross country in. currently, but it is something that doesn't seem like it's cracked or having any major issues that we can tell. A lot of it's just we got to tune it and drive it and get it in the car. So we're going to put it aside like we've been doing with a lot of our engines. This is a decent engine that we can now wrap up, put in the warehouse, put it aside, and whether we put together a kind of project starter kit like we've been offering to customers lately, or it's something that we save for one of our own cars, we don't know, but now at least we have all that time has been spent. We could put a tag on it, wrap it up, put it in the warehouse, and we know that we can just grab it, throw the appropriate intake and carburetors on it, and spend just a little bit of time tuning it a little bit better. But it seems to be good at good oil pressure, which was kind of exciting considering all of how the cylinders and everything looked. And after a bunch of replaced parts and mismatched stuff, we have a usable flathead. So the main idea of this video was to show you guys what you actually get into when you buy one of these. I swear it ran when it was pulled, or my granddaddy had this in a car and it ran great and it just was sitting on the ground. This was one of those engines that I bought from an older gentleman that, oh yeah, I got this, you know, from a friend and it ran good and blah, blah, blah. And bent valves, bent rod, all kinds of weird stuff going on with it. You know that his memory was faded or he was feeding me a great tale. I don't know what it was. That's why we try and get across in the videos on our channel is that a lot of people are selling engines that are unknown with folklore for way too much money, and people are paying it and they are losing a lot of money. So make sure you know what you're buying, and we've showed you what goes into getting an unknown old hot rod flathead engine going. This was kind of like, I want to call it not worst case scenario because we got it to run, but almost worst case scenario where it took a lot of work and extra parts to get it together. But ultimate long will it run video. It did run and now it's good. So thank you guys for following along. Down in the comments below, if you've ever worked with a flathead like this and you had a good story about getting one running, it's been sitting for a long time, drop us a comment down below. We'd love to hear it. Thanks guys. Catch you later.